Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. We have a few members of Congress who will be joining us live, and we're just waiting for them to connect. But in the meantime, we have some other special programming for you. Thank you so much for being here to celebrate our 3-year anniversary. I'm Rachel Rosen. I'm the Communications Director for Democratic Majority for Israel. On behalf of our staff, our president, Mark Melman, our board chairs, Todd Richmond and Ann Lewis, whom you'll hear from later, welcome. We hope your 2022 is off to a good start. In just a minute, I'm going to turn it over to Todd Richmond, and we're going to show a couple of videos from some of our distinguished champions on the Hill. But first, I wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items. If you like what you hear today, please consider checking us out on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can sign up for our newsletters and our updates on events on our website at dmfi.org. And if you'd like to ask a question when the members of Congress speak, you can type it into the Q&A session on Zoom. If you're on Facebook, you can just type it into the comments page. And right now, I am really happy to share a video with you from Congressman Richie Torres, who's been a great champion of the U.S.-Israel relationship and a great friend to DMFI. He was kind enough to share his greetings on our 3rd anniversary, and he sends his regrets that he was not able to be here live in person.
Hello, I'm Congressman Richie Torres, and I'm proud to join all of you in celebrating the 3rd anniversary of Democratic Majority for Israel, DMFI, which has emerged as a formidable force in both democratic politics and pro-Israel politics. Even though the American-Israeli relationship is a bipartisan cause, as it should be, DMFI reminds us that the Democratic Party has historically been the home of pro-Israel advocacy and should remain so well into the future. I proudly stand with DMFI as it sets out to elect and empower the next generation of pro-Israel Democrats, in keeping with the best traditions of the Democratic Party and the best traditions of the American-Israeli relationship. Thank you, DMFI, for 3 transformative years of pro-Israel leadership.
Thank you so much, Congressman Torres. Next, I want to turn to greetings from Congressman Josh Gottheimer. He was kind enough to share his thoughts and his reflections on DMFI's 3 years and provide some insights about the work he's done to help strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship.
When I was first elected to Congress, it was clear to me from day one that to protect our homeland, to ensure our strength in the fight against terror, that we needed our allies. And there's no better ally in the Middle East than our friend Israel. Israel must be and must always remain a strong ally in the fight against terror and the fight to protect the United States of America. On a personal level, of course, fighting to strengthen with the Jewish state is a key part of my work. It's something that I wake up every day thinking about. I went to Hebrew school growing up and observed the high holidays, became a bar mitzvah. In college, I joined Alpha Epsilon Pi fraternity and remained active, joining the board of their foundation after college. I was also active in Jewish causes in graduate school, including the L'chaim Society at Oxford in England. And I have stood strong in all the years since in making sure that we do everything we can to stand up against anti-Semitism and stand strong with Israel. It's always been a top priority of mine. We have critical issues right now in the Congress that I'm helping to lead the charge on, including supplemental funding for Iron Dome and standing up to the biased United Nations. And leaders like the Democratic Majority for Israel have been critical in that work. And I want to thank you so much for all you do to make sure that Israel remains front and center, that the relationship remains front and center, that we stand up to anti-Semitism. And the resources that we all join in fighting for together, which are now being held up in the Senate and Iron Dome, I know that you believe we must get it across the finish line. Israel is such a critical partner, whether you're talking about in healthcare or in defense or in technology. I believe that our historic alliance right now has never been more important. And we must do everything we can to ensure it does not become a partisan political issue. It should always be bipartisan, something that Democrats and Republicans get behind. However, working to ensure that pro-Israel sentiments remain strong in the Democratic Party is so crucial. and I want to thank you for your work to that end. We must stand up to splinter voices who drive division and anti-Semitism in our party and even in the halls of Congress. That's why the work the Democratic majority for Israel helps lead is just so important and why I'm so grateful. So congratulations on your anniversary. Thank you for your work. I look forward to continuing to work together to ensure that our party remains overwhelmingly supportive of the U.S.-Israel relationship. Thanks and God bless.
Thank you so much, Congressman Gottheimer. We really appreciate your remarks and for your longtime support of DMFI. Now I'm very excited to introduce my colleague, Joel Wanger. He is the political director for DMFI, and he leads our political work on Capitol Hill. And he is involved in DMFI's sister organization, DMFI PAC, as well. So Joel, do you want to talk to us for a few minutes, and we will show another video as we wait for Congresswoman Luria to join.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel, and thank all of you for joining us today and for being a part of our 3rd anniversary celebration. I've been at DMFI for just about as long as it's been in existence. I believe I was the first person hired after Mark in April, our kind of core team. And one of the things that we've always done is to be able to adapt to the needs of the pro-Israel movement. And just over 2 years ago, when COVID really began, we made a pivot to doing virtual events. We wanted to bring, since we couldn't bring speakers around the country, since we couldn't meet with our supporters face-to-face around the country, we wanted to convene. We became a convener of these virtual events. And in that time, we've had a number of really strong speakers come and speak to us, one of which was Noah Tishby, who came here. She's an Israeli producer who is probably most well known for being the showrunner for In Treatment, an HBO series, as well as a number of other shows. And we had the opportunity to hear from her as she spoke about her new book. And I wanted to go ahead and share some highlights from that speaking event with you all now.
The reason I wrote this book is because as a liberal, I've seen the conversation around Israel shift in the last over a decade in ways which I identified as acute, deep-rooted, and very dangerous. So much of it is actual manipulation. Like, this is not, I say this in the book, this is not by accident, it's by design. And B, lack of knowledge. Israel uses its rockets to protect its citizens, and Hamas uses its citizens to protect its rockets. And that is like, I said that in the video as well. It's very hard for normal people in the West to understand that we're dealing with an enemy who would literally do that, like that it's not hyperbole. If we want as liberal to actually help something in the Middle East and help Israel and help the Palestinian people, start figuring out ways to empower Palestinian people. Being pro-Israeli, you're pro-Palestinian, and being a Zionist and being liberal does not negate wanting to for everybody to have their self-determination and empowered as a nation. But I've seen this turn into this kind of like fashionable cause that is devoid of facts, yet catching on like a house on fire.
Thank you all for joining us and watching that. Now I want to turn it over to DMFI's board co-chair, Todd Richmond.
Thank you, Joel. Greatly appreciate it. I see we have Congressman Ted Deutsch on the line right now as well. So I have the esteemed honor on behalf of myself and Ann Lewis, Mark Melman, our board, our CEO of the organization, and all the members of our board to basically welcome someone who's been a great friend of all of ours for an extremely long time, prior to DMFI as well. He's been a pro-Israel activist for so long. Congressman Deutsch represents the 22nd District in South Florida. He serves as the chair of the House Ethics Committee, a senior member on the House Judiciary Committee, and a senior member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, on which he serves as chairman of the Middle East, North Africa, Global Counterterrorism Subcommittee as well. He is widely recognized for his work on gun violence prevention, promoting economic opportunity for South Florida, and for advocating for the security interests of the United States and Israel. He is a vocal supporter of the U.S.-Israel relationship, and he does not, and I emphasize, he does not hesitate to call out those who attempt to demonize and delegitimize the state of Israel. We are extremely grateful to have him in Congress. We are extremely delighted to have him here with us today. So Congressman Deutsch, I'm going to give the floor to you, and then afterwards, we're looking forward to you being part of a Q&A.
Thanks, Todd. What a great introduction. I appreciate it. It's great to be with you. Great to join all of you on this anniversary celebration. Look, when DMFI started, the idea was that it's really important for people to understand the importance of the U.S.-Israel relationship in the Democratic caucus, in the Democratic Party. And as everyone gathers together today to mark this anniversary, I think it's really a great opportunity to highlight just how true that is and how important your work has been over these past 3 years. You only need to go back to last May and the aftermath of Hamas's war on Israel. And when there were thousands of rockets raining down on Israel, it was an important moment for members of Congress who understand the threat that Israel faces, who understand the values that we share with Israel, who could really personalize what was happening, understand deeply what was happening to the citizens of Israel as these rockets continue to rain down. And if you go back and you look at the statements, so many of the strong statements made by Jewish Democrats, non-Jewish Democrats, all who support the U.S.-Israel relationship and understand the importance, it was a really important time. And then I want to fast forward to the aftermath, because for all of the rockets that were launched at Israel, it was Iron Dome that played such a critical role in saving the lives of Israeli citizens, also saving the lives of Palestinians. And when it was time to replenish the Iron Dome and to make sure that we were standing up to get that done, it was the Democratic Party that moved forward quickly to pass a standalone measure to provide funding, which still sadly has not gone through, because there continues to be one Republican senator who stands in the way of doing that. But it was a really important moment. And at that same time, the number of my colleagues who came up to me on the House floor who said, I am really glad that we had the opportunity to move forward and to have a separate vote on this and to make clear how committed we are to Israel's security. That was a reminder of how important the relationship is, how important your work is in helping to sustain that relationship, and how grateful I am for what you do. This is a moment in time when we have historic opportunities with the most diverse government in Israel's history, and the opportunity to lift that up to really show what our shared values look like. It's a time when the Abraham Accords and normalization with more countries means that we have the opportunity to work to help further secure Israel's place in the region and in the world. And we can do all of this as proud Democrats who understand the deep and long-standing relationship between the United States and Israel. So I'm thrilled to join you today. I want to congratulate you on the fantastic work that you do. If there are questions, I'm happy to take some, but again, to you, and especially to my colleagues and friends who share this same deep commitment that I have, I want to express my deep gratitude.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Congressman. You've always been, as I said, a great friend, and it's always nice to know that we can talk to you and bounce ideas. And you've just been a great friend. I'm going to kick it over to Joel, our political director, to open up with some Q&As, if that's all right.
Great.
Thank you so much, Congressman, for joining us. And for folks who are listening in, either on Facebook, you can submit questions to the comments, or if you're with us on Zoom, you can send the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. But Congressman Deutsch, you mentioned Iron Dome And you mentioned, that it passed the House pretty overwhelmingly in September, but yet Rand Paul is still holding it up for more than 100 days. I believe today it's 120 days he's now been holding it up for. Do you think some people are taking issue with this purely defensive system that saves both Israeli and Arab lives alike?
What is there? There's no answer. There's no good answer to that. Joel, I think it's important to point out, it didn't pass. It didn't pass just overwhelmingly. It was a resounding show of support for a system that helps save civilian lives. The hardest part of what happened in May during that whole horrific episode and the war, Hamas's war against Israel, was the fact that these missiles, these rockets were being launched with the sole purpose of killing civilians. And here is a system that helps save civilian lives, as you rightly point out, Israelis and Palestinians, and there's no good answer. And I've talked to friends in the Senate, I've talked to friends around the country who tell me that they've tried to get this through. There is no rationale for standing in the way of this important effort to help save lives and ensure that civilians' lives are saved in particular.
Awesome. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. It's something that we've also been pushing for as well. Well, it looks like we've got our next guest joining us. So I'm going to turn it back over to Todd to introduce our next guest.
I'm going to jump in and tell everyone how awesome Elaine Luria is while Todd gets ready to do the formal introduction.
I'm trying to get into my my video there. Can you at least hear me?
Yes, Todd, we can hear you. You can go ahead.
Okay, well, I can't see you, but that's okay. So we got Congresswoman Lurie on the phone. That's fantastic. She is also another incredible member of Congress. And just really want to thank her for joining us today. We're thrilled to have her. It's my pleasure. It's all of our pleasures. I also just want to do a quick shout out to Barry Porter and Sam Latter, who are on the phone as well, who are board members of the Democratic Majority for Israel. Congresswoman Luria represents the 2nd Congressional District and is the Vice Chair of the House Armed Services Committee and a member of the House Committee on Veteran Affairs. Prior to her election in 2018, Congresswoman Luria served 2 decades in the Navy, retiring at the rank of commander. Congresswoman Luria served at sea on 6 ships as a nuclear-trained surface warfare officer. Wow. Deployed to the Middle East and Western Pacific and culminated her Navy career by commanding a combat-ready unit of 400 sailors. Representative Luria was one of the first women in the Navy's nuclear power program and among the first women to serve the entirety of her career in combatant ships. Of all the members in the House Democratic Caucus, she served the longest on active duty, having completed 20 years of active military service with the U.S. Navy. She's a wonderful friend of DMFI, an outspoken champion of the U.S.-Israel relationship. We are so fortunate to have the Congresswoman here. And on a personal note, when my son started talking about going to colleges, and Annapolis, of course, came up, the Congresswoman was just amazing to talk to him about her experiences. I think your experience of Passover on the aircraft carrier has to be one of the coolest things I've ever heard, which I think you should share maybe. And without further ado, let me introduce the Congresswoman, and we look forward to some Q&A as well.
Great. Well, it's really great to be here, Todd, and with all the folks with DMFI who've been such strong supporters of myself and my colleague Ted Deutch, who is here, and really the work that we do in Congress to make sure that we can maintain a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. And I think that we find maybe more times recently than we would like that we really are called on as a group to speak up and to be very strong supporters of Israel, strong supporters of that relationship, and to speak out against anti-Semitism as well, as we've seen just an alarming number of incidents around the country and around the world. Todd, you did mention that little anecdote that I shared quite a while back, but I did serve in the Navy, kind of The short version of the whole bio is, I drove ships, I operated nuclear reactors on aircraft carriers. I had the opportunity to serve on 6 different ships and was the executive officer to second command of a cruiser, and then commanded the amphibious landing craft on the East Coast. But one special memory, I think, kind of the way in the Navy or in the service anywhere you can have a home away from home, is I was on a deployment. The chaplain, there's rarely a Jewish chaplain out in the fleet. But the chaplain approached me and said, you've indicated that you might be interested in being a lay leader in some capacity, and Passover is coming up. And so kind of put our heads together, did the best we could with what we had on the ship, and put together a Passover Seder. And we had very generously received a care package, which included some matzah and gefilte fish, and in the Uniform Services prayer book. So there is a prayer book that has everything, including a Passover Haggadah in there. We were right underneath the flight deck while we were launching aircraft. They were actually doing strikes into Afghanistan. And as the aircraft, were recovered and launched, we were, going through a Passover Seder. But it was just really special to be somewhere like that, far away from home, but sharing that, common tradition on a special holiday, and know that we were doing that in a way that we were, protecting and defending our country. So that is sort of a special story that I think folks, find interesting about my service, and being someone who's Jewish and served for 20 years in the Navy. And Todd, I have so many things I could talk about. Just really wanted to sort of focus in on the fact that I'm the vice chair on the Armed Services Committee. So really try to continue to be a very strong supporter of the memorandum of agreement to provide, security support to Israel, additional support for Iron Dome. And, we're pushing. We passed that through the House. It's 100 and something days ago. So it really is disturbing that one senator continues to hold this up. Important that we provide that weapon system for Israel and themselves, as well as the continuing and ongoing assistance. Another initiative they have and work through the defense bill is to create a cooperative relationship with the U.S. and Israel for PTSD research. We both know in Israel, and then our soldiers and sailors who've deployed and unfortunately suffer from trauma and PTSD. That bringing the best in research from our 2 countries together to find improved methods for treating PTSD. The collaboration will only make that better for those who can benefit from that research. And so have been pushing an initiative as well, U.S. Israel PTSD Collaborative Research Act. And so and that's bipartisan as well. So certainly want to point out that this is something that we can share the importance of with all of our colleagues. So I'm sure there are lots of things other things we could talk about, and between Ted and Brad, who's not here, also Brad Schneider, whose son also up until recently was a naval officer. We all work very closely together, and we're only able to do that and continue to do that and continue to come back to Congress from the support from folks like you who come together, share a passion for these issues, and want to help keep Democrats who care about Israel in Congress. So thank you.
Oh, listen, first of all, you don't need to thank me. We thank you, as well as Congressman Deutsch. We can't begin to thank you for always being there, making sure that the U.S.'s relationship is as strong as it is. And I think that what Congressman Deutsch said as well, with your leadership too, Congressman Luria, is that when the Iron Dome passed in the House, it was passed overwhelmingly by the members of the Democratic Party. And yes, it is one person that's holding up, and that's a Republican senator that we see right now. So now what I want to do is I want to introduce another member of Congress who is joining us. So Congressman Luria, please don't go anywhere. We're going to do a little bit more Q&A if that's okay. But I believe we have Congresswoman Shontel Brown on the line as well. And she was definitely a star over the past year with her most recent race. And she began her career in Cayuga County as a councilwoman, and was the first female and first Black chairwoman of the Cayuga County Democratic Party. After winning what we know is a vigorous and rigorous primary in 2021, which our sister organization, DMFI PAC, as many know, was actively involved in. Congresswoman Brown was sworn into Congress in November, where she represents part of Cleveland and Akron. She sits on the Committee on Agriculture and the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. She has been a strong supporter of strengthening the U.S.-Israel relationship, has been a dear friend of DMFI. Saw comments already this past day or so from the congressman in support of Israel on Twitter as well. And we just want to say thank you. Thank you for what you've done in such a short time and for joining us today. So without further ado, Congresswoman, love to hear a few remarks from you, and then we're going to open up to Q&A from, I think, Joel or Rachel. So Congressman, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good evening, everyone. It is an honor to be here with you today as Democratic Majority for Israel celebrates its 3-year anniversary of building support for a strong U.S.-Israel relationship and advancing a progressive international policy agenda in Congress. As one of the newest members of the House, I remain committed to advancing policies that promote the security of Israel and ensure progress towards peace in the region through American diplomacy, engagement, and leadership. Our relationship with Israel, our longtime Democratic ally in the region, has been and will always be mutually beneficial. And it is a partnership founded on our shared ideas and values. That is why one of the first bills I supported when I was sworn into Congress was the Israel Relations Normalization Act, a bill to strengthen and expand the normalization agreements between Israel and its Arab neighbors. I look forward to continuing my work with my colleagues in DMFI to deepen support in our party for a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. As I do so, I continue to be grateful for your support, your leadership, and your advocacy. I look forward to any questions you may have. Thank you again.
Thank you, Congressman. That was great. You know, just listening to you, you bring a smile to my face and your energy. It's really, it's something fantastic, and we look forward to working with you for years to come. I'm going to turn over to Joel Wanger. Some of you have already seen him. He was the political director for Democratic Majority for Israel, and I'm going to toss it to him to do the Q&A. In the meantime, have a great day, everybody, and thanks again, members of Congress, for your support, your leadership, and all your advice.
Thank you, Todd. As a reminder, you can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to submit questions. This first question will go to all of you, but we'll start with Congressman Deutsch. You've all been outspoken about a new report from Amnesty International that calls Israel an apartheid state. We here at Democratic Majority for Israel also released a statement calling it baseless and delusional. What can you do as supporters of the U.S.-Israel relationship to help dispel these lies about Israel?
Well, it's an important question. First of all, I also want to take a moment just to acknowledge Shontel, and I know I've told her personally, and Elaine and all of us who care so deeply about the U.S.-Israel relationship and have spent so much time working on it, how grateful we are to have Shontel as a colleague and friend and ally, and everyone who's on here can tell what we all learned about you the first time we met you, which is your enthusiasm is infectious and people just want to be around you, and that's going to make you a really great and successful member of Congress. So great to be with you. Joel, look, the most important thing that anyone can do when something like that report came out yesterday is to speak up and call it out. It's just outrageous to try to paint the one democratic country, the most democratic country in the Middle East, with the most diverse government in its history, where Arab Israelis and Jewish Israelis sit together in the Knesset, where respect for for women and for the LGBTQ community and where is so respected, where there is so clearly on display the shared values with the United States. To try to paint that with a brush and call it apartheid is just it's outrageous. And so we have to be prepared just to point that out. For me, it's the only other comment I'll make now about this is perhaps the most damning part of that whole report is not about Israel. It's about Amnesty International and the suggestion, as if you read through it, the way that it ignores not just the history of the modern state of Israel, but thousands of years of history, and actually suggests that the creation of the modern Jewish state is somehow illegitimate, that the country itself should be delegitimized. That's what plays into the hands of the worst kinds of critics of Israel, who don't even recognize the importance of Jewish state. If we speak out, and if we speak with one voice, and if we speak with passion, because we know what's actually happening there, we know the people, we recognize the goal is working toward peace. We work with our Israeli friends and work toward ultimately the hope of a two-state solution. And finally, we continue to point out that this idea that some have, as summed up in this report, that you can either be pro-Israel or pro-Palestinian, but if you want to work toward a Palestinian state, that necessarily you have to be anti-Israel, doesn't just do harm to Israel, it does harm to everyone who wants to seek peace. And we just need to be clear about that.
Definitely. Congresswoman Brown, what do you
Thank
think?
you. And thank you. Thank you, Ted, for those very kind words. It has been quite a whirlwind and a privilege to be able to serve alongside both you and Elaine. So I thank you both. And again, to the organization for pulling this conversation together. It's tough to follow Ted because I think he said it so perfectly. The one thing that I will add is that he touched on the word passion. You have to be able to tell these stories with feeling sometimes. One of the things we've been talking about as it relates to messaging is not always focusing on the facts, but touching feelings, telling compelling stories. And I think that was what was most advantageous about my candidacy during the last primary. I had an opportunity to visit Israel, and so it struck chords and feelings in me that I was able to relate and tell my story about the vulnerability that I felt when I stood on the Golan Heights and when I stood near the Gaza Strip at a kibbutz. And so being able to tell relatable stories so that people can get a feeling and understand, I think as the most compelling convictions that we can lead with. But yeah, calling it out most definitely, but also being able to tell a compelling story so that people can start to empathize and understand that our words do matter and that we have to be able to really tell those stories that connect with people where they are. So that would be my suggestion. So thank you.
Definitely. And Congresswoman Luria, do you have something additional to add on this topic? I know you also put out a statement.
Yes, and I just want to echo what both Ted and Shontel have said. It's just incredibly important for us to speak up in these situations. And it's really shocking to me, only having been in Congress a little over 3 years, the number of times that I've joined together with my colleagues to issue these statements that, assert really, to me, the most basic tenets, that Israel as a democracy is our closest ally in the Middle East, as Shontel, very eloquently described earlier on, has the right to exist and the right to defend itself. So, we have what I call are just these, extreme views that are maligning Israel and Israel's right to exist. And at the same time, it's just a voice that, very concerningly continues to get louder and louder in certain camps. So that's why, having folks like us in the Democratic caucus, and especially when we join together, I think our voices are stronger, and really being able to stand up for what's right. But to be completely honest, I am getting kind of tired of the number of times and the frequency with which we have to do this. But believe me, all three of us and our colleagues who share the passion with us for these issues are persistent. So yes, we're tired of it, but we are going to continue to be vocal and speak up when it's necessary.
Definitely. Congressman Luria, you mentioned in your remarks the United States-Israel PTSD Collaborative Research Act. And I know, as a veteran, you've done a lot of work to expand mental health care access for veterans like yourself. Could you speak to some of that, your work to expand that access?
Certainly. So I serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee, and one of our top priorities within the committee has been access to mental health care to help through a variety of means with the shortage of mental health care providers within the VA, and providing access to that care, especially many times they're veterans due to the nature of their discharge from service, who don't habitually have access to care through the VA. But we've made absolutely sure that all veterans in a time of crisis with suicidal ideations, they can reach out to the Veterans Care Line, they can have access to that care, and essentially there's no questions asked. And I chair the Disability Subcommittee, so we've done a lot in evaluating the process by which benefits are determined and the characterization of discharge. And it's quite unfortunate because a lot of times when people are serving in the military, but they end up having, what we call, performance issues, they're getting in trouble, and they have a pattern of that misconduct that can actually lead to them getting separated, and therefore they have a characterization of discharge that wouldn't allow them access to the VA later on. The very reason that that whole downward spiral and process started sometimes is truly because of a mental health issue. And we really recognize that, and we are trying to go, back and make sure that veterans who may have ended their service under not favorable terms, but due to a mental health issue, first get the care that they need and deserve from their time serving our country. But also that we can correct that characterization of discharge in a way that gives them those benefits, not just in a crisis, but over the longer term for their health and for the well-being of their families as well. So those are just a few of the things that we're working on.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Congressman Luria. We really appreciate all the work you've been doing on behalf of the veterans and the mental health challenges they face as a result of their service. This next question will be for you, Congresswoman Brown. I know that one of the votes that you're probably most proud of has been President Biden's infrastructure bill. Can you talk some about some of the benefits that legislation is going to bring back for voters and constituents in your district?
Nothing would make me happier. So yes, I always like to start off by reminding folks that it was shared with me that the bipartisan infrastructure bill had been being negotiated for years, and I was able to get it done on my second day. So, but in all seriousness, I was able to vote on it immediately after being sworn into Congress. And so that actually catapulted billions of dollars being sent to Northeast Ohio, 1.8 to be exact, as it relates to repairing our roads, 96.7 million to deal with our small to medium-sized bridges that often would not be able to get this immediate attention because of red tape and matching funds that would typically be needed if you were using these resources with your state or local municipality or regional arm such as the county. Well, these new dollars, the 96.7 million that will help these small to medium-sized bridges that are at a C- or less, will be 100% federally funded. I'm proud to say I was joined by union leaders who equated that $96.7 million to hundreds of jobs. So when you consider the resources that are being put into our district, $11 million for our airport, $700 million for Burke Lakefront, the smaller airport. So we're making tons of investments dealing with the lead pipes. When we talk about Ohio, I believe we have the most lead pipes in the country, totaling over 650,000. And the Biden-Harris administration's commitment to replacing all of the lead pipes will inevitably create brighter futures for so many who have been suffering from disparities for so long. In addition to that, the investment around broadband internet services. When the pandemic struck, one of the things that was immediately brought to my attention in my previous legislative position was how many of our students didn't have access to high-speed broadband internet. Well, we know as we sit on this call via Zoom, how important high-speed internet is. And so being that we will make that investment, that will change the course and reverse course for a lot of communities to the tune of 30% in Cleveland who do not have internet access at all, to provide them with opportunities that they never had before. So this bipartisan infrastructure bill does so much for so many people. And I couldn't, again, be happier that it was one of my first major votes after being sworn into Congress. So a lot of things will happen as a result of this infrastructure law. And again, I couldn't be happier to tell more people about the great work that we've been able to do. Democrats have been delivering, and I'm very proud of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Congressman Deutsch, this next question's for you. We've already seen the benefits from the first round of the Abraham Accords. What are you hoping the future brings for normalization of relations between Israel and its Arab neighbors?
Well, we have seen and continue to see the remarkable changes that have taken place. I mean, this is absolutely transformational. If I don't know if you had a chance to see yesterday on the internet, there was a video circulating of President Herzog's visit to the UAE and the playing of Hatikva, and it's so moving and so reflective of the change that isn't just on paper, but the change that's playing out government to government, and especially with respect to Israel and the UAE, people to people. And the opportunities with the UAE and Bahrain and Morocco are only going to continue to grow. We've seen it on the security front, even this week as the Houthis have continue to launch missiles at the UAE, and the UAE's, again, relationship with Israel and what that means from a security standpoint. But going forward, there's so much more that's going to happen in terms of business opportunities and bringing together entrepreneurs from Israel and from the Gulf, and what that's going to mean to grow those relationships. And then add to it Americans who are so desperate to see this kind of positive development also playing a role. It's only going to be a matter of time, and I know this is a priority for the Biden administration. It's only going to be a matter of time before more countries join in and normalize relations and build upon the great success that we've already seen. I think this is the most transformational moment that I can recall, and we're going to be seeing only more positive developments in the months and years to come.
Awesome. Thank you. This next question is for Congresswoman Luria. Before you hopped on, we were talking with Congressman Deutsch some about the Iron Dome supplemental funding. And a number of folks on the call are wondering, how has one senator been able to hold up this funding, this life-saving funding?
Well, I would say that the Senate rules over on that side of the building remain a bit of a mystery to me, but there's a lot of procedural rules internal to the Senate that allow one senator to object to something, and that would prevent it from moving forward for a floor vote. They're familiar with how this is played out with some important things like voting rights legislation recently, as far as the filibuster is concerned. So I know that they set their own rules, and sometimes those rules seem to be designed to prevent progress. But that is where we stand. And, there were iterations along the way as far as this potential for funding went. We did try to put this in the defense bill, the NDAA. And there was opposition there because this was termed as emergency funding. And, although he claims that he supports the funding, he thinks it should be done in regular order and it should not be considered an emergency. But the truth is that when Israel needs to replenish its Iron Dome in order to continue to provide adequate self-defense, I think it's urgent, and it takes time to build these missiles and to provide the technology and components that they need. So we've looked for a variety of mechanisms to do that. We will be very soon. I hear that we're coming to an agreement on the budget here. We've been operating under continuing resolution, and that goes through February 18th at the latest. So we really have a big push. We've got to fund the government, and another opportunity to potentially put in this critical funding into the work we're doing on the budget and appropriations in a couple of weeks.
Definitely. As Congressman Deutsch mentioned earlier, this passed overwhelmingly through the House and has overwhelming support from the entire Democratic caucus in the Senate. And it really is, as DMFI has been highlighting on Twitter, it's now been 120 days of Rand Paul's objections to this funding. So the next question will be for everybody, but we'll start with Congressman Brown for this one. How do you think the work of pro-Israel Democrats impacts those in the caucus who might not be our strongest allies?
So thank you for the question. I think that it's a matter of leading by example and being able to have uncomfortable conversations at times, right? So we have, I saw a couple of questions in the chat around my relationship with some of the members who don't necessarily share our same values. And I believe in connecting with folks and trying to find some common ground so that we can have a better relationship, to have those uncomfortable conversations where it doesn't create a total disconnect, right? The last thing you want to do is to start from a place where you know there's already going to be a little bit of contentiousness and disrupt the potential relationship. So being able to establish some connections with those folks and disarming and being able to engage them in a way so that we can have some dialogue and comfortably and respectfully disagree, but hopefully get to a place where we can find some areas that we share principles and values, and see how we can draw or connect the dots as it relates to our U.S.-Israel relationship. The thing to me that, and I took a page out of Chairman Jeffrey's books. When you talk about progressive, I think the state of Israel is as progressive as you can get. As Ted spoke about, so many of the issues that some of our friends that identify themselves as the more progressive wing of the party fight for are actually occurring already in Israel. So we have to promote those things and make sure that those who have a tarnished, tainted, and misinformed view understand the reality. But again, you connect by feelings and relatability. And so I do continue to work on that. So I've had some conversations starting to develop those relationships so we can try to get them further along and closer to our side.
Thank you so much. Slightly different version of this question to you, Congressman Deutsch. I guess, she was talking about how we have to find those areas of common ground. So how do you cultivate those meaningful discussions around, around issues that are important to the Puerto Rico community with your colleagues, without knowing that we all come from different places, we all have different stories, we all come from different identities?
We do, and that's the beauty of it's the beauty of the U.S. House is that literally every corner of the country is represented, every view in the country is represented, and we've got to be respectful of that. That said, there are so many members who don't have the same level, may not have the same level of understanding that that we have on issues regarding the U.S.-Israel relationship. For a lot of reasons. There are 1,000 issues that members of Congress deal with, and we're not all experts on every issue. But on an issue like this, where if we're knowledgeable and we're passionate and we're willing to share both that knowledge and that passion with our colleagues, you can establish relationships that are based on those kinds of exchanges, because there are definitely issues that my colleagues may absolutely know about and understand better than I do. So I want to be able to sit down and talk to them about Israel and the Middle East and our shared democratic values and what that means to me and to the United States. And they'll have an opportunity to tell me about whatever the issue is that really matters to them, and suddenly you build alliances that way, and you're able to go forward together and be a much more constructive body when it comes as the House overall, when it comes to standing up and supporting the U.S.-Israel relationship.
Definitely. Congresswoman Luria, do you have anything to add to this conversation?
Well, I would say that serving in a legislative body is very different than what I did, professionally throughout my career, but there's some things that, I think are similar. One is that, in the military, one is always working together, a unit is always working together to get a mission accomplished. And so I view it that way, but, people come from, different backgrounds, they bring different perspectives, they have different priorities. Like Ted said, they have different challenges on their time and things that they're working on. But, it's just truly a value to me, not only in this area and, gaining strong support for the U.S.-Israel relationship, but in all the work that I do, that I try to reach out both across the aisle and across the political spectrum within our own caucus. And, this is definitely an issue that, can come up where I feel very passionate and, very much that I am a strong voice for this issue. And as well, when, new members come to Congress, I'm in my second term, so I'm still kind of a newbie too, compared to Ted, but, you realize over the course of your first term that, you only know what you know. And so everything seems new, but then you get into your second term and you realize, there's new people coming in and having an opportunity to bring them into the, kind of into the fold, let them know how important these issues are and how important having them join and be a strong voice for these issues is. So that's why we're just so thrilled that Shontel is with us. And we look forward to, welcoming, more people in the future who can sort of join our chorus of why these issues are important. And, I really neglected in my opening remarks to just say congratulations on the 3-year anniversary. And thank you for including me in this event to, celebrate all the work that you have done over the last 3 years and that I know that you'll continue to do and that we'll do together to support the U.S.-Israel relationship. So I was negligent in mentioning that earlier, but definitely wanted to sort of close by highlighting, what a great organization you are and just, how important your voice is.
Thank you so much for those kind words, and thank you for your wishes on our 3rd anniversary. And thank you to Congresswoman Brown and Congressman Deutsch. I'm now going to turn it over to DMFI's second co-chair, Ann Lewis, to close out our event. Ann?
I'm happy to do this, but I must say start my video. I've been trying. And Joel, somebody up there doesn't want me to, doesn't want to see me, but oh, good, you've done it. All right. Well, I'm going to repeat first what Joel just said. Thank you so much to the members of Congress who have just been speaking with us today, Congresswoman Luria, Congresswoman Brown, Congressman Deutsch. Let me just say, we're grateful for your time today. We're grateful for your service every day, for your leadership. Thank you. You make us proud. And to all of you who are on this call, thank you. We're grateful for your support. We could not do what we try to do and often do accomplish at DMFI without you. Your engagement with DMFI helps us keep the Democratic Party pro-Israel, strengthens the U.S.-Israel relationship. So please, if you haven't already, sign up at dmfi.org. That's dmfi.org to stay in touch with us, to learn about our future events, and please follow us on social media channels at Dem Majority for Israel, DEMMAJ for Israel. We look forward to continuing to stay in touch with you. We've got a lot to do and we can do it together.